Zoning Board of Appeals. Would you please rise for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, for tonight's meeting, Art Grace is not able to be with us, so Phyllis Capone will be a voting member for this meeting. Just briefly, the procedure of the ZBA is to divide the meeting into two different portions. The first portion are public hearings for each of the applications that are before us. And we'll take them in the order that they're listed on the agenda, and a copy of the agenda is available in the tray there by our counsel's desk. For each item, we'll ask the applicant to come forward and to be sworn in. All testimony before the ZBA must be sworn testimony. At that point, we will then go through the board, asking each member asking questions to clarify the material that's been submitted. When each member has asked questions, the meeting will be open to anyone from the public that wishes to address that application, but that application only. When we've finished with each of the applications, we then begin the deliberation portion of the meeting. During that portion, there's no further public input, but people certainly are welcome to stay and listen to the deliberations. One further clarification is that you will note on tonight's agenda that items 4, 5, 6, and 7 have been postponed until a special meeting exactly 1 week from tonight. The reason for this is there was a mix-up in the required public notification. We have to publish and mail letters giving us a certain number of days notice, and in order to get that proper notification, we'll have to have those meetings on next week on August 27th. And my apologies if this delay has caused any inconvenience to anyone. Okay. The first two items on the agenda, each of them has been withdrawn at the request of the applicant. So we'll move directly to item number 3, Briad Lodging Group at 900 Thomas Watson Drive. And I believe both of you were here at the last meeting, so you were sworn in at that time, so you're still under oath. And okay, you have, and I should also note for the record, you submitted a rather lengthy memorandum of law detailing a number of points, but I think I'll turn it over to you. Whoops. Okay. No,
nothing.
Well, let's.
I'm going to ask Mark.
Yeah. Reboot.
No. Oh, there it is.
There you go.
Okay.
Now it's there.
All right. Now everybody's working. Okay. Great. Okay.
Good evening. At the last meeting, there was some discussion about the possibility of an alternative monument sign, and we thought we would begin by having Ken Casamento show to the board and describe the potential alternative monument sign.
Okay, great.
So, I have two 11 by 17 packets, and then I have a bunch of little ones. Everyone, whoops, sorry about that.
Oh, good, okay. These are the same
They're the
pictures,
same-
just smaller? Okay.
correct. I just blew the larger ones up so that you can see it.
Yep.
So, based on our meeting last time, we talked about getting a monument sign and in the location of what was proposed pylon sign. We looked with the traffic engineer as well as the site visibility, and we worked through both site location with the electrical that is there for the Marriott Residence Inn, and we figured we can get to about 3 feet from the base of that pole, which is with the stone. What we're proposing is a 5-foot base and a 5-foot top, so the sign itself stays the same, which is essentially a 50% reduction in height from what we were previously approved for the monument sign. The physical sign stays the same at 50 square feet, which is below the allowable square footage for the sign as well. Any lower would cause a visibility problem from mainly the south direction, heading south on Route 9. So the location of the sign, as part of what we talked about, was really this is the only location that can work for a monument sign. For a couple of reasons. Safety being the biggest one. When you look at nowadays, everyone's putting stuff into a GPS. The address is 900 Thomas Watson Drive. So if you're coming south or north, when it's your GPS or anything else is going to tell you to make a right, if the sign goes to the further entrance, you're not going to see a sign for it, but you're going to see one in the distance, and you're going to go, wait a minute. My GPS is telling me to turn here, but the sign's down there. So talking through with our traffic consultant and that, we all felt that this is the right location for that purpose, both on northbound as well, because you'll pass the time where the sign, if you're heading north, where the street, your GPS says turn it, the next right at Thomas Watson, and you'll have passed that southern entrance to the plaza. So that's why the location here really works for the best spot. We did look at the board's request on just to the south, and I'll grab this. So this is where we are proposing it, where it was approved previously in the same spot. We did look at going in the area just south in the green area that's there. One of the major issues is, as you can see from this, there's data easement, there's a sewer easement, there's a lot of shrubbery and trees that are here. And there's also the monument sign that's there, not really a monument sign, more like a plaza sign, a low plaza sign that's here at a stone base. So in order to do a monument sign, we'd have to go beyond it. And then what you're really doing is creating a pylon sign just further into the site. And if you look at it, excuse me, from here, which is what we had last meeting, if you see the sign here, this is that low sign here. So if you were to put a monument sign, it would be blocked by that. If we went to put a pylon sign, visually, it's going to look the exact same as what it is now driving down the road, just physically set further back from where it is now. So again, taking all those into consideration for traffic safety and location, we felt that this was the appropriate spot and appropriate sign that would work for that location.
Okay.
In terms of the procedure for this evening, if the board is of a mind to favorably consider a variance, we are happy to agree to defer a determination on the appeals And if the board grants the variance, be it the pylon sign or the alternative monument, and once the 30 days runs out for anybody on the planet to challenge the variance, we would withdraw the application for an appeal, which might simplify the procedure for this evening. If it turns out the board is not of a mind to grant an area variance, then we'll have to come back and deal with the appeals. So that's our suggestion for simplifying and expediting the procedure. At the last meeting, we were asked to send a letter to the Marriott people to say, may we share your pylon sign. We did that. We provided a copy to the office. We've received no response, which I think is effectively a negative response. Also, there was a question as to whether the variance is unlisted or type 2. In speaking with Lisa is of the opinion that it's unlisted rather than type 2, and so we submitted an EAF that's part of your package that's before you, and we took the liberty of submitting a suggested part 3, which is also before you. The written submission reviews the earlier variance that has expired. It also reviews the variance for the Marriott sign. And so we are suggesting that legally those prior actions by the board, in the absence of any factual distinctions, would lead to the board reissuing a variance. And if the board didn't agree with that, nonetheless, we think under the balancing test, we've satisfied the balancing test. We've explained the benefit to the applicant. You can't see the hotel coming to go to it without the sign. And we assert that given the nature of that area, there is no detriment to the neighborhood or community. If you'd like us to review that, we can, but it's before you in written form. So your direction as to whether to go through that or just leave it with the written submission.
Okay, first of all, thank you for putting this together and coming up with an alternative. We're mindful that the county weighed in on this, opposing the idea of having 2 pylon signs located there. The alternative they suggested was having both signs on the same pylon. It appears that's not going to be workable. And there's no way we can force the Marriott Corporation to accept that. So at the last meeting, it was suggested that there might be another alternative, and that the monument sign, and you have in fact come up with a proposal. So thank you. I think I'd like to get a kind of sense of the board about whether this monument sign is something that we would consider granting a variance for. I think if that's the case, then we can just proceed to examine that proposal. So as far as I'm concerned, and I'll just start out here and then everybody else can pipe up. To me, there has to be some kind of sign there, and that's the place where people should enter from Route 9. So the question is, can we come up with a sign that is functional and efficient and attractive? And I think this does. So I'm certainly willing to consider granting a variance to locate the monument sign where they proposed. So this is kind of a straw vote, so let me know.
I agree.
All right.
Tony? Carmen? Yeah, I mean, she was along on the field trip, and we actually sat there and looked at that spot and whatever. Phyllis?
I think it's an improvement. over what was first presented, yeah. Mark.
Okay. I think it's,
Okay, so-
clearly, this is an alternative to pursue.
So thank you. With that, we will get off these seats, go into those seats, and await your deliberation.
Well, I think let's focus now on the proposed monument sign, and people may have questions or whatever, so
Okay.
I don't know, Phyllis, do you have, or Christine, I'm sorry. I'm doing that again.
That's all right. No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Paul? I guess my only question is the height. And so the total height would be 10 feet.
Correct.
Does it have to be 10? Could it be 8?
I mean,
I think the size of the sign, the one where it says that,
Yep.
I mean,
the square footage of the sign.
that's, I don't have a problem with that, but it's sitting up on a pretty tall,
It is, and part of that is, when you see this, the idea behind the pylon sign, as it was to really be able to see it from further down the street. If you're in the right lane, we looked at some rough areas of where it is, and where this car is about the last moment you could fully see the sign. As you back up, every foot back, you start to go down. And the idea behind the monument is, if you see the duck sign on the top, that's kind of a logo, a symbol. People know what you're looking for the hotel type. So our hope was to have that up at the top, so you can start to see that as far back as we can get it, so for safety purposes. Now, if everyone's agreeable to 4, I can talk with the applicant. You know, the idea here is we want to move forward.
Yeah.
We don't want to come back again.
right. No, please. Okay, Larry?
No questions.
Tony?
No questions.
Carmen?
No, but you know, as I look, look at the.
You need a microphone.
Oh,
There.
excuse me. As I look at the two signs, doesn't the Marriott sign kind of fade in the background, or is that just the picture? I'm not sure.
I think some of that is the Photoshop.
Yeah, this isn't exact science. It's just a Photoshop from the sign company. So the image is kind of blurred, not blurred, but softened.
Okay.
And the new sign is brightened, so you see what's proposed.
Right.
In reality, I don't think you'd lose one or the other. I think they'll kind of blend together a little bit more visually. But, you know, the colors are going to be vibrant on the Marriott the way it is. You see it when you drive by.
Okay. I didn't know that the duck was a logo.
You didn't?
No. I did not know that.
Yep. It's pretty synonymous with that brand,
Oh,
the Hilton
okay.
Homewood. Yeah.
All right.
Phyllis, anything?
Yeah. I'm just sitting here looking at this, and I don't go in and out of this entrance into the mall. Is this going to impact visibility at all?
In what way?
If
Exiting?
you're exiting, yeah, if you
It's
turn to
it's-
look up, that's my concern. Because you're really looking around something.
But it is back, so.
Uh-oh.
No,
Oh,
there.
okay.
Just had to wait a minute. If you see the Marriott sign is here, and I know it's a little hard for you, sorry about that. Here, we're still back behind it, so the stop bar is back here, and then they'd come forward and come out. So our traffic consultant looked at it and talked about it, didn't think it would impact any of the traffic movements. A pylon sign would be easier for that purpose, but he didn't think it would impact any of the movements in that location. And there's a letter to such in your packet that Richard provided.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, no further questions.
Okay. All right.
Do you want to just make sure there's no one in the audience?
Oh, yeah, okay. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the application 900 Thomas Watson Drive? Apparently not. Okay. All right. There are no other questions from the board? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Would you give us one moment, Mr. Chairman?
Oh,
Sorry. In talking with the applicant about the height question, because obviously that's a concern. I don't know if it's a concern about all of them. Like we said, dropping it down to a total of 8 brings it down quite a few. If maybe 4, we could work in the middle somewhere. Again, the applicant was looking to be up so you can really see it. And that was what was originally approved.
Okay.
So we're trying to work together.
And believe me, I understand the visibility issue. We actually drove in that right-hand lane southbound several times and looking, when could you actually see the Marriott sign?
Right.
Of course, you're going to be a little in front of that, so you'd see.
Behind, technically. It's inside of the site instead of outside of the site.
If you're looking from this direction, turn south, right? This is the Marriott.
Oh, yes, okay, right. And those bushes there are an issue. Now, I don't know, is just trimming those bushes?
They're not ours. They're private to the neighboring parcel that we have no control over.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately.
Okay, all right. Okay, fine, well, we'll have to discuss that, but I take your point. Okay, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Recusals? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now, okay, as I mentioned, the next 4 items have been postponed till the next meeting. That brings us to items number 8 and 9, Chad Danforth, 14 Flower Hill Road. Okay, good evening, and if each of you would just state your name into the microphone.
Good evening, Chad Danforth.
And I am David Freeman, the architect for the project.
You swear or affirm the testimony provided tonight is true and complete to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
I do. Very well.
Okay, so if you would just briefly describe the project and why you're here.
So I'll do the talking, I guess. Like some homes, this is for an accessory apartment. The second one for not an elderly parent, because you'd probably hit me, but for parents to move in with the Danforths. In part of that, it's also the construction of the job, construction of garages. So the main house, the original house was built in 1950. It currently has a garage that is detached from it. It would be removing that garage, placing a garage within its place, constructing a connecting mudroom between the two, and then placing the apartment above the garage. The house is a total of just under 2,500 square feet. The apartment itself falls under your 35% for the accessory apartment. It's the design of it, or the design places the front of the garage is a one-story structure with the roof sloping away from the road, so it's cut down on the visibility of the size of the part. And then the actual accessory apartment is more towards the back on the second floor. There's a dormer in the front, but we're when you come in Flower Hill, this is the corner lot that you see. And so addressing that with the house, with the garage, with the dormer in the front, keeping the slope low, and then the accessory apartment is around to the back side of it.
Okay.
It's a corner lot. So that's the request for the side yard variance.
Okay, Christine, any questions?
No questions right now.
Paul?
No questions.
Okay. let's see, the current garage is a two-car, right?
It's a probably a 1.5. It's an extended single stall garage.
And so the new one will have three cars.
Correct. Right.
Okay. You need that big a garage?
Well, so it's the primary plan is for my in-laws. So they're downsizing from a house. So I'm making room for all of their stuff coming out of that house also.
Ah, okay.
And part of
The stuff in the garage. Yeah, okay. It brings back nightmares, thank you.
and my future nightmares.
Okay. The entrance to the apartment will be in the back?
The entrance to the apartment is to the side of the garage. And there is also entrance, which will probably be the primary entrance, is actually from the interior of the garage.
Okay.
But there is a side door into it. If you look at I believe the side elevation, you see that, the west side.
Oh, I see. Yes. All right. And so there'll be a sidewalk or something that
Yes.
will lead back there? Okay. Okay. So you really need two things. One is a variance from the side yard.
Right.
And I noticed when I was there that along that lot line, there appears to be a row of some pretty substantial trees. Will they remain?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's mostly, it is a very private lot, which is a good part of it. And so the back of the garage where the accessory apartment looks out on those trees. So there's not really a view to the neighbor.
Okay. Okay. Larry, any questions?
No questions.
Tony?
I have no questions.
Carmen?
How many stairs up to the apartment?
So right now, it's actually, and that's a good question. So it's going to be a wider stair that's broken up with a landing. Just if there ever is a need for a chairlift, so a chairlift could be installed, and rather than just have a straight 10-foot tall stair, which to me is dangerous, it actually goes up, if you look on the plan, goes up to a landing, turns left, and then goes up to the second floor. So it's really the convenience, but it's a safety issue. Or could be.
Plus the plan is potentially to have a chairlift in there
Right.
someday.
Okay.
But that's not necessary right now.
No.
No. Okay.
And we could knock on wood and never, I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
So part of it, so my mother-in-law has been diagnosed with a nervous system disorder. So this has kind of been a ripple of that for the reasoning for us to assist them as they grow older.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, anything else, Carmen?
No.
Okay.
No further questions.
All right, Phyllis?
Thank you for marking it out. It was really helpful. Most of the time, we're not given those kind of visuals.
You have to thank Sandy then.
Thank you, Sandy. That made a big difference.
I did what she said, pretty much.
My only concern is it's going to be a dramatic addition. It's almost like a house next to your house. So,
Yeah, I think
Is-
that's why we tried to put that dormer in the front, just so the aesthetically would marry with the house, and then also to have a steep slope roof and it sets back from the house, which I think assists with that.
and the roof line is the same for the house and the garage?
Actually, the roof line of the existing house reads as a two-story. So on the front of the garage, we're actually going to bring the roof down to one story. So it has more the appearance of a cape with a dormer on the front of it.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the existing house is clearly a two-story house. Yeah.
And it's funny, to me, it reads as an older house, and I had originally thought it was probably the original house. And it was built in the 1950s, actually, so it's not that old a house, but it's definitely a distinctive house, and it's definitely a two-story.
No further questions. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else have a question on the board? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the application at 14 Flower Hill Road? Okay, seeing no one, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Recusals? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 10, the Giotti Incorporated, 28 Manchester Road. So if you'd each identify yourselves and then be sworn in, please.
Yes, I'm Nancy Forrest, and I am with Glody Signs in Poughkeepsie.
I'm Zidan Neshwat. I'm with Gasland Petroleum.
Do you each swear or affirm the testimony you provide tonight is true and complete to the best of your knowledge?
Do, yes.
Yes.
Okay, let me just clarify something here before we get going. Who in fact is the owner of the property at this point? Is it Gasland?
No, Gasland is a supplier. So I'm going to be re-imaging the station for them.
Rebranding and
Right.
changing it from a Citgo to a Gulf?
Correct.
Okay, but the station is still owned by
The same.
Giotti Incorporated and operated by them?
By them.
Okay, okay. So I assume there's something in our packet that gives you the authority to
Yes,
represent them.
I have his signature notarized.
Okay.
For the.
Okay, got it, all right. Yep, okay, good. There were just
Yeah, of course.
a number of different company names here, and I want to sort out who the players are, so, thank you. Okay. Okay, so you're in the process of rebranding the station, and so that new signage is required.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, I have two things that we have been given that I need to read into the record, and so let me just do that now, and then you can comment on that or add additional information if you wish. Okay, the first is from the Dutchess County Department of Planning, a letter addressed to the ZBA in reference to the Gulf gas station sign area variances. The Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development has reviewed the subject referral within the framework of general municipal law. Action. The applicant is seeking a variance to permit an electronic message display sign in the Arlington Town Center District where EMD signs are specifically prohibited. This may require a use variance. In addition, the applicant is asking for area variances related to freestanding sign area and height, pump canopy signage area, and extended height above the canopy cabinet. Comments. The rebranding of this site presents a unique opportunity for the town to improve the overall aesthetics of the area by bringing the signage into conformance. Freestanding sign. The proposed sign is 50.83 square feet in area and 20 feet in height. The town currently permits a freestanding sign no larger than 12 square feet with a maximum height of 12 feet tall, which is more than adequate to provide visibility for customers traveling along Manchester Road. As New York State law directs that only the minimum amount of variance be granted, and as the applicant has not provided adequate justification for a larger sign, we suggest the sign be reduced to conform with the town's code. Electronic message display sign. The town specifically prohibits electronic message display signs in the Arlington Town Center District because this sign type has been deemed incompatible. Although the applicant cites that residences are not in close proximity, there are several residential neighbors nearby that may be able to view the bright LED lights, especially at night. Dispenser pump canopy sign. Town code permits 2 signs affixed flat against the surface of the fuel pump canopy not to exceed 25% of the area of the canopy face. The proposed sign would cover more than 95% of the canopy and would extend 2 feet above the top of the canopy cabinet. As the proposed freestanding sign is highly visible to those traveling in both directions along Manchester Road, the oversized canopy signage is duplicative and unnecessary. We suggest the dispenser canopy signage be reduced to conform with the town's code. Recommendation: for the reasons stated above, the department recommends that the board deny the requested variances. Voting and reporting requirements: if the board acts contrary to our recommendation, the law requires that it do so by a majority plus 1 of the full membership of the board, and that it notify us of the reasons for its decision. Signed, Owen Rafter, Commissioner of Planning, by Janet Tessier, Junior Planner. Okay, so that's the first letter that we received. And let's see, I guess you need to keep that, I guess. The second letter is from Doctors Myra Hugie and Justin Touchon, 36 Manchester Road. Dear board members, we are writing to express concern regarding the requested area variance for the property located at 28 Manchester Road. The sign will be detrimental to at least 2 nearby residential homes. 36 Manchester Road is a family residence with 2 bedrooms facing the street on the 2nd floor. New owners are closing the property at 34 Manchester Road today, and while this property was previously used as a commercial space, the new owners plan to use the property as a residence. The proposed taller and larger signage with an electronic message display will be visible from both these residences. The visual/light pollution caused by the signage will not only be unpleasant for the occupants of these homes, but will also likely result in a loss of property value. Sincere thanks for your consideration and our concerns. Signed, Myra Hugie and Justin Touchon. Okay. So I guess I'll just give you the opportunity to respond or comment.
You want me to start? Yes, first, I'd like to start with the pylon. That pylon has been at this height for a very, very long time without creating any kind of health, safety, welfare issues. The top of the sign will be no different other than changing out faces with lighting as it is now. If anything, it may be dimmer, the top portion. The electronic signs can be put on automatic dimmers so that they are not really bright at night. The alternative way of doing it with the manual letters is a bright white background, which certainly is more. Is this going to be a 24-hour station?
It's, no, it's not.
No. So what are their hours, do you know?
I don't know what their hours are. If
it's
the hours
not
aren't changing, it's what they are now. I believe they close at 10.
So that would be another alternative if it's a station that's not a 24-hour convenient mart that the digital board could be shut down after a certain time in the evening. But it honestly, it's also and I can provide surveys and documentation that the changeable board letters are actually safer than the manual letters for readability and people to see. The height was put there. I don't know, Sandy, I don't know if Lizette had looked into that, if they had ever had a variance granted, but I think that may have been at that height when it became the Arlington Town Center. I'm not sure. I remember at 10 years old, there was a gas station there, and that was Route 55. So it's also important, there is not a lot of traffic there on Manchester, and I'm sure you've done the drive-by in both directions. And with the tree line there, at a couple of points with that pylon sign, you do see that there is a gas station down there. So if you are in the need to, you can get in the left lane and go down, come back and go to that gas station if Gulf happens to be a station that you want to gas up in. So it hasn't proved to be any kind of a problem or an issue in all the years that it's been there. I think it's just unfortunate that, the rules change as we go along. It's always been maintained as a gas station. So that would be on the pylon. The branding on the canopy, and also 12 square feet, it's state law that they have to provide pricing. So really 12 square feet is just not really enough to do both. So that's another reason for the area square footage. And then moving on to the canopy, this is a national branding rolling out. It's what they're doing, I understand. It's copyrighted and all, but that doesn't mean they can do it in each and every town. So, and it's not really the sign that is oversized, it's the Gulf, but you consider the background of this particular one, because it's not all one color, to be signage. And that's why it appears, even though the sign is 25%, the actual circular Gulf logo. So I don't know, we can also remove that portion and just do the Gulf logo, correct? The circle.
The extended.
Right.
Extends up, yeah.
And just do the circle. Because you can't do a circle in the size that it's there.
It would just end with the canopy.
We'll see.
Okay. Okay, I guess let's just start with the questions. So, Christine?
Okay, well, you answered my question about the height and the size of the sign, so that's, for right now, that's all I have.
Paul?
Are you planning on using the sign structure, or are you putting up a whole new?
No, we're going to use the exact same poles that are poles and foundation. It will remain as is, just change out the upper faces to the Gulf and change out the 3 pricings for only 2. There'll only be 2 prices.
And tell me, is it difficult if you were to lower the height of the sign? What difficulties does that create?
Well, it's certainly an expense. We would need to cut and weld poles on site or start over with poles. I think those, not sure if they're a direct burial, but then that would require a whole dig out.
You can
If they're
just top
direct
them.
buried.
You can just top them off and just take 8 feet off the top?
Yeah, we could. It would be a significant expense, but we would rather not, because we want the sign to be slightly visible, even if it's only for a matter of 5 seconds, from what was the original, what is now Route 55, as opposed to the old 55, which is now just an offshoot used for a few. I see there's professional offices and such in there. And as I said, the electronic sign runs on about 7,000 nits during daylight hours, but can be reduced to 700 at night.
And Mr. Neshwat, do you have an idea what percentage of gross sales come from gasoline?
At this specific location? Or in general?
Yeah.
Like, that's a very vague question, which
Yeah, at this location, yes, the one we're talking about.
I don't know.
Okay. All right, that's all I have.
Okay. One of the things that concerns me about this is the Gulf circular logo on the canopy that sticks up above the canopy. And this is something that's generally not allowed at all in the town, having signs that are above roof lines or canopies. Wouldn't it be possible to have you know, whether it's a smaller Gulf logo or just something that would go on the face of the canopy and not project above it?
I haven't spoken to them about it specifically for this site, but I've seen other Gulfs that eliminate that extension. So I believe I could get that same,
Yeah, I mean,
All blue backgrounds?
What is that?
Can you do it on a solid blue?
on, like as a decal.
Yeah, like you did at Hanover, or no?
No, it's gonna be the same way the way the Sitco is.
Right.
It's gonna bubble out.
Okay, so, you know, really, the pylon sign is the most important to the advertising, and if the going above the canopy is an issue, we could certainly
Yeah,
bring
I
that
mean,
within. I mean, it'll be an 18-inch logo viewed at, you know, a
Yeah, I
couple
mean,
hundred feet,
it
but
just struck us when we were out there. And it actually also appears in your
Mm-hmm.
mock-up. I mean, you have the big Gulf circular logo on the pylon sign, and then it's repeated right next to it. I mean,
as I said, that's.
I think people would, having just the pylon sign, are gonna know what
Right.
kind of a gas station they're entering.
Well, that's the trademark that they have, and we're just following their guidelines. But if the height is the problem, we could work on the height, but it is gonna kind of,
Yeah, I know these.
It's not gonna be a decal.
You know, we've had other, you know, national chains, and the argument is, oh, well, you know, we have to do it this way because this is, you know.
Yeah, it's
what
18 square
What
foot.
corporate came up with. But it seems to me in this case, you know, I don't have a problem with your putting Gulf on the canopy. But I think
Right. Keep it within it.
on the canopy instead of.
yeah, that's what
above it.
I'm, 'cause it'll stay on, it won't go above the canopy, it's gonna be within the,
Okay, okay. The other thing that I would note, and you mentioned that the size and the height of the freestanding sign has been there a long time. The current Sitco signs cover the entire canopy, so in a sense, you're not creating a new use. You know, you're just changing the design. I would also note that, well, technically speaking, you're in the Arlington Town Center District. The conditions along Manchester Road are very different than they are along Main Street.
Yes.
Raymond Avenue,
Absolutely.
and so on.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you had to abide by the 12 square feet, what they had in mind was shops along College View Avenue, and this is a very different kind
Yes.
of neighborhood.
Yeah.
So, okay, Larry,
No questions.
Tony,
Nothing additional.
okay, Carmen,
No questions.
okay, Phyllis.
As a side note, several years ago, the gas station came in and asked for a variance to have U-Haul trucks, and agreed at the time they met with the board to park them in the back. In your pictures and when we were there on Sunday, they're not in the back. So if you, I understand that you're a
Yeah, I
new
could-
person, if you could address that issue moving forward, that would be helpful.
I will address them.
Because as the county said, they're trying to kind of change the look of the neighborhood, and the trucks don't necessarily add a lot to the
Didn't
neighborhood.
even notice them.
Understood.
Will you have a sign, a Gulf sign on the store as well?
No.
'Cause I think there's a Sitco there that's kind of on the store right now.
I didn't really, yeah, I would have to, I guess, change the verbiage on that.
So you'd have a sign on the store as well.
Does that say?
Whatever is existing there, yeah, I see
From
it.
the picture, it was there,
Yeah, I,
I think it's to the left of the.
right? It was, we saw it.
To the left of the.
Yeah.
It's not the front.
That's there now, or is this an old picture?
Yeah. It was there, I'm
I just
98%
noticed-
sure it was there on Sunday to the left of the front
Yeah.
door when you go in.
I noticed that until you just pointed it out, but, I would have to change the verbiage, or at least where the logo is. I can't keep any Sitco on there.
Does it have Citgo on it, you recall?
Yeah.
I didn't, okay. I didn't know if it was, sometimes they just have Food Mart.
No, it is.
And I didn't have it in any of the photos you gave me. But that's in the window, right? That's down here. I think you're talking about up here.
Now,
I would have to visit the site and know exactly what I would do with it, but I wouldn't change the size. If anything, we'd make it smaller.
Yeah,
apply for a new
you
permit.
might in fact want to check with the zoning administrator. If it's a sign that's in a window, that's allowed as long as there's not more than 25% of the window that's
area.
covered with signs. So you may be able to simply put one in, but you should check.
Okay. Yeah, it's hard to comment on it. I don't know what it looks like.
And we would have to, even if we changed it, come back for another application for a sign with what was allowed on the building and have it approved.
Well, you should check with the zoning administrator because there are certain signs that you would be allowed by right.
Right.
You wouldn't have to come back.
No, I understand the
Yeah.
window signage,
Yeah,
and if
okay.
that's what they have and they wish to keep, I understand that. And if it's something that they decide they want to put a food mart up, then that would be understood that it would need to be applied for within the code and
Yeah.
everything, because the
Okay.
building sign's not as important to.
Okay, okay. Let's see, yeah, go ahead, sure.
and you have to have the golf on the top of
Pumps?
the pumps.
Yeah, they would not approve me, but as a golf.
It's a corporate requirement, and I think a state requirement too, is it
Right.
not? Yeah.
So how, and I'm sorry, how would we ensure that they didn't, like that the golf, because you're agreeing that the golf could stay within the framework of
Of the canopy.
Of the canopy, it wouldn't raise up, and then we would just stipulate that?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Then I have no further questions.
okay. Any other from the board? Okay, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the application at 28 Manchester Road? Okay, seeing none. If there's no further questions, there is a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, that brings us to the end of the application agenda. So now we can return to the top of the agenda. Briad Lodging Group, 900 Thomas Watson Drive.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
there's a couple here. Do you have a question, or do? Yes. Do you have, were you here for something?
No, we're just viewing because we're, have a case coming up next week.
Oh,
We want to
okay.
see how the procedure works.
Oh, okay, all right, well, good. And again, my apologies if the week's delay has been a problem for you, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Okay, let me just ask our counsel, basically, we're now considering a variance to allow the installation of a monument sign at a location that is not the location of the business.
Correct.
Okay, okay.
Right, it's an off-premises sign.
An off premises, okay, okay, I was looking, looking for the wording. Okay. Okay, you've seen the proposal, comments?
Well, I have a question. What do we have to do about the interpretation?
Well, the applicant has indicated that that they're willing to defer the determination on the application provided that the variance is granted. So once the variance is granted, we will deem if it's granted, we will deem the interpretation request deferred. And then in such time as once the appeal period has run, the applicant will withdraw that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. What do you think about the monument sign?
I think it's a good alternative. I think it looks nice.
Okay.
Visible.
Yeah, I don't think there are any real alternatives. Some sort of signage, and it's the only way to get it. I think.
All right, any other comments? Tony, is this?
I don't see an alternative to it either, and I think this is better than having a second pylon sign.
I appreciate that they really presented an alternative, and I think that was good. I still question the way it's balanced with Marriott up high and then the other one that much lower. But, you know, it's not perfect. Let's put it that way. But
okay.
I think that was a good step forward, and I appreciate it.
Okay, I don't know, Larry, Phyllis, do you have any comments?
Just to clarify, the base is going to be 5 and the sign is going to be 5, or because we did talk about trying to shorten it, but I didn't get
Right.
closure.
I mean, as proposed, there will be a stone base that will be 5 feet high.
And then 5.
And then 5 feet on top of that. I mean, I always like things a little smaller, but I do understand that there's a visibility issue there. I mean, Carmen can tell you, we drove up and down, looped around about 5 times, I think, really looking. And so, yeah, I mean, I can live with 10 feet. I mean, there are lots of other signs along there that are at least as big or bigger.
Jim, since we talked about the need to prune, you know, that who owns that property?
Well, according to the testimony, it's owned by the other plaza. So in other words, the applicant can't just walk down the road and start trimming somebody else's bushes.
Yeah, I understand.
And that wasn't clear to me when we were out there. But
okay.
These are 2 separate parcels, and we just have to accept that.
Mr. Chair, it's actually, technically, there's 3 parcels along there because the sign will be on the IBM property, which is in the so I would recommend that the board condition their variance, if they're inclined to grant it, on receiving permission from IBM for the installation of the sign as proposed.
Okay, you're one step ahead of me, as always. And what I would refer the board to the staff report, and I want to thank Mike for the work on short notice to put all this together, in which he and the staff are recommending that alternative monument sign be approved, but that it be subject to several conditions. And one of those is that the applicant is to provide proof of authority to place the sign at the location in question. So in other words, prove to us that you have an easement from IBM. B, the applicant to demonstrate that the total height of the monument sign is the minimum required to allow for acceptable visibility from South Road. This should be addressed in some sort of way. And C, the design of the monument base and the landscaping subject to review and approval by the Director of Municipal Development. So in other words, come in with the drawings of what's going to be constructed, so that Mike can just make sure that it conforms to the conditions of the variance. So, with those, let's see, we can now proceed to act on this, but first we have to deal with the environmental issues. So, I move that the ZBA declare itself lead agency for the purpose of evaluating the environmental impact of the action proposed in item number 3.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. I further move that based on the short EAF submitted by the applicant, that the ZBA finds that the action proposed in item number 3 will have no significant impact on the environment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Recusals? Okay. All right, so now we can consider the variance, and I wonder, Lisa, could you sort of state what the variance would be, since we don't actually have it formulated?
The variance would be to allow a monument sign to be located on a property other than the applicant's parcel for an off-premises sign, and it's pursuant to, I don't have it in the application.
Let's see. It's
210-127B? I'd have to look.
Or is it
Well, off-premise,
60 B4, I believe. It was in. Okay, it's in. Okay, no, it's 210-122-7. Prohibited signs restrictions. A sign not located on the premises to which it is associated or to which it refers. Any such sign shall be deemed a prohibited billboard sign. I think that's the one.
If you start with the findings, I'll confirm while you're doing the findings.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I move that the ZBA grant a variance to allow a monument sign to be located on a parcel other than the parcel on which the business is located. And I'm further move that the board adopts as findings the following. Whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of this variance. The board finds that the location in question is a heavily traveled commercial retail section of town, that on either side of the proposed location, there is very similar signage, both monument signs and pylon signs. The board finds that the size of the sign in question is, or the proposed monument sign is consistent with other signs along Route 9. 2, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. The board finds that given the location of the hotel and the location of the driveway that accesses that hotel, there are very few options, and the only other alternative to a monument sign would be a pylon, and in this case, we would, given again the circumstances of the ownership of the two different hotels, the only other alternative would be to have two pylon signs next to each other, and the monument sign in this case is far preferable. 3, whether the requested area variance is substantial. It's substantial in the sense that it adds a sign in a location that would be otherwise prohibited. On the other hand, given the impact of the sign, the monument sign is less substantial than a pylon sign would be. 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions. The board finds that given the determinations in the environmental assessment form and our on-site visits, the board finds that there will be no adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions. It's going to be very similar to the existing signs in the area. 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the Board of Appeals, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the variance. The board finds that the difficulty is self-created in the sense that they choose to want to locate the sign on the IBM property. On the other hand, the difficulty was imposed long ago by the design and location of the hotel itself. Okay, with those as findings and with the following conditions, condition number 1, the applicant shall provide proof of authority to place the sign on the location in question. 2, the applicant shall demonstrate that the total height of the monument sign is the minimum required to allow for acceptable visibility from South Road, and this demonstration could take the form of a photo simulation showing where the visibility would be blocked by a shorter sign. And 3, the design of the monument base and the landscaping subject to it shall be reviewed and approved by the Director of Municipal Development. Okay, so move.
Second.
Mr. Chair, I wonder, on the second condition as to the height of the sign and the visibility, is that because the board feels you need additional information beyond what was provided at the meeting? Because who would review that information, and then how would the determination be made whether it's sufficient or not? My take when I read the staff recommendation was that would be a discussion that would be had at the meeting rather than as a condition of approval.
I would also just point out that the applicant had suggested possibly some reduction from the 10 feet total to maybe 9, or, some compromise position, which maybe it would be.
I'm questioning how that condition would be applied or reviewed or enforced if it's other than making the applicant come back to determine whether that condition has been met.
It seems to me that the material would be submitted to the Director of Development.
Okay.
And he would make that determination. I think it's clear from the board that any reduction would be welcome, but we've also agreed that it's a question. The issue has to do with visibility, and what was shown us in the photographs was taken from a point of view where it's very easy to see. But
should the condition then be that it shouldn't exceed 10 feet, and that along with the landscaping and all the final height should be approved by the Director of Municipal Development?
All right. I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Can I interject a second?
Sure.
Sorry. But my question goes back to if we're looking at, and there's a difference of opinion as to what the visibility height is, we're back to here to argue that the height difference.
I believe that the board would like you to submit some additional information to the Director of Municipal Development, and then he will make the final call between 9 feet and 10 feet.
And I think it would be visual evidence showing that a smaller sign will not be visible from, say, that right-hand lane of Route 9 going south.
Okay.
There's some point, beyond which you can't see the sign. It would nice to have a picture showing us that.
And I agree, and I understand, and what I'm trying to avoid is the additional cost to the applicant, because what I'm gonna have to do is take 50 photos up and down and photostim each one of them to see where the height is and what the distance is from that road where you see it. If the board would like 9 feet, the applicant has said, we'll go with 9 feet to be done to move forward. You know what I mean? Without having to put more, because by the time we spend the cost and another 2-3 weeks in getting the photos and everything done to submit and have them review, the applicant would like to be able to move forward with the sign itself.
I can.
Why don't we just grant up to 9 feet?
Maximum 9 feet. Is that agreeable? Okay. So then, condition number 2 becomes the monument sign proposed by the applicant shall have a maximum height of 9 feet, including both, and this includes both the stone base and the sign itself.
And Mr. Chair, for the actual code that we're seeking the variance from, I would use the 122.7, but I would also use 127B, which is the one that provides that signs can be only at the entrances of the park.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right. So with that as an amendment, okay, just to clarify, okay.
So
okay, and
was there a pending motion?
Yes.
And was there a second? Christine's, okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so The vote now is to approve a monument sign in a location that would be otherwise prohibited, and with conditions including that the sign be no more than 9 feet. All right, anything else?
And the second condition is that they supply the required easement or consent from
Yes.
you.
Right, and the third was the landscaping and final design of the wall. Just
Condition to the Director of Municipal Development.
Okay. All right, if there's nothing else, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Recusals? Okay, the variance is granted. Okay. All right. Okay. That brings us then to items number 8 and 9. And do we do the variance first or the variance first? Okay, so, this is a area variance to allow the construction of a garage to be located 9 feet 3 inches from the side yard lot line where 20 feet is required. And this is a type 2 action. We haven't heard anything from the county on this, no? No. Okay. And, okay, so, questions, comments? This is, so it's about roughly 10 feet closer to the property line. When I was out there, what struck me was the boundary between that lot line and the nearest house is heavily wooded, and the nearest house is pretty overgrown with vegetation as it is. So I really don't have a problem with this. I don't know, any other comments?
No, I think it's a nice
Okay.
design. It's,
Okay, you want to make the motion on this one?
sure. I move that the board approve the request for an area variance set forth in item number 8. This decision is based on a review of the application, testimony of the applicant, testimony offered in the public hearing, and results of site visits by board members and the staff report. In approving this variance, the board adopts the findings as set forth in the staff report.
Let's see, you don't, okay, so, we can, let's see.
There's one for the special use permit.
Yeah, that is, but I can use this.
Oh, okay.
Hmm? Is
So
there-
there was a staff report for the special use, but not the, okay.
Right, okay. So, let me append as the findings to Christine's motion, the following. Whether there will be an undesirable change produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties, the board finds that the proposed addition, well, it will result in a large house, will not have an undesirable change in the neighborhood. We note that in this neighborhood, there are a number of houses that are large or which have had additions. The board further notes that the extensive screening between the new addition and the nearest neighboring house is substantial and consisting of large evergreens, which will minimize the impact. 2, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method. The board finds that if the goal is to enlarge the garage, very little, it would be difficult to locate the garage in another location. 3, whether the substantial area variance is substantial. The board finds that a variance of about 10 feet, given the location and the situation of the proposed addition, is not substantial. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions, the board finds that this is a fairly routine addition to an existing structure and will have minimal impact on the physical and environmental conditions. And 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. The board finds that it is self-created in the sense that they're choosing to enlarge the garage, but that it's not self-created in the sense that there are few other alternatives to achieve the benefit that they're seeking. Okay, so add those as findings.
Findings, and so move.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve the variance for the location of the addition. There's no further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Recusals? Okay. Then item number 9 is a request for a special use permit for an accessory apartment. Okay, any comments or questions there? No. I mean, it's, I think, making good use of some new space, and I think many of us can understand the desire to create a space that parents can feel comfortable living in. So unless anybody's got any objections, and on this one, let's note that there is a staff report going through all of the requirements for an accessory apartment and concluding that this proposal meets those requirements, and recommends that, let's see, is it recommending the adoption?
Sure does.
Sure does, okay, right, okay.
We had to do a EAF?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Okay, I move that the ZBA declare itself lead agency for the purposes of reviewing the application in item number 9.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I further move that the ZBA, based on the information provided by the applicant in a EAF short form, finds that the proposed action in item number 9 will have no significant impact on the environment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. All right, Paul, do you want to do this one?
Sure. I move to approve the request for a special use permit set forth in item number 9. Decision is based upon a review of the application, testimony of the applicant, testimony gathered during the public hearing, results of site visits by board members, and the staff report, and that it meets the criterion set forth in a town code. I don't think there were any conditions, right?
No.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to approve the special use permit for an accessory apartment at 14 Flower Hill Road. There's no further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Recusals? Okay, and the permit has been approved. All right, item number 10. Giotti Incorporated, 28 Manchester Road. Several variances to associated with a rebranding of an existing gas station. Note that the county has objected to this and recommended that it be denied, so we'll need 5 votes on this to approve it. Okay, discussion?
Well, it was pointed out earlier that you really, as far as the height of the sign, you really need for it to be that high in order to see it on Route 55, because Manchester Road is not traveled very much. So
Okay.
that's a good point.
And also to disallow the circular Gulf logo to extend above the canopy. I think, and the applicant seems to, I'm sorry, it's not exactly the applicant, but the gentleman that's going to be doing the retrofitting indicates that would not be a problem. And I think the young lady from Glody indicated that as well.
Yes.
So it would be, not to exceed above the canopy. That's going to be the same for the pumps as well. Yeah. Right? There's not going to be a circular gulf extending above the pumps as well.
Okay. Okay.
The applicant.
I have a picture of the second option. You guys want
Within the canopy.
Yeah, okay. I
don't know that.
Yeah, I
They're entitled to a portion on the canopy, so.
Right.
Right, so, I think, as long as it doesn't extend above then we.
Do you want to
You-
specify the percentage so that, I mean, Gulf is only 4 letters, so I think it would be difficult for it to take up a large majority of the sign, but in order to eliminate that variance, it's signage covering less than 25% of the canopy side. And then that variance wouldn't be needed, so we can say if the applicant is having Gulf on, whatever the dimensions are of that side of less than 20%, we can deem that application for a variance withdrawn.
Okay, the complication here is that the 25% limitation applies to the sign, which in this case could be interpreted as the color drawing or the
banding.
The banding, yeah.
So if the board is amenable, you could say that the lettering will not exceed a certain percentage and allow the banding, the coloring, if that's how the board's inclined.
That's what I would say. I don't know how people think about that.
Well, another option would be just to, the 5th variance is the one that talks about the extension beyond the canopy. So, I mean, in the staff report, I indicated that maybe that one would be, maybe there's a reason to deny that one, but I don't know.
Right, and then they're limited to the 25% based upon the code, right?
Well, then for number 4, again, it's the signage is the entirety of the color scheme that's basically being used on the canopy, and that's why you end up with this 95.5% of the canopy being, quote, a sign. The Gulf logo itself, just think being in a circle, it's probably not going to be able to, and to fit on the side of the canopy, it's going to be almost self-limiting in terms of size.
Yeah, I mean, you've got an illustration, and it's kind of a cloud painting with kind of the Gulf colors and then a solid blue. This is similar to other discussions we've had about what constitutes a sign. And I suppose in this case it's technically a sign.
They could choose whatever design they like, just so long as it doesn't exceed 25% of the canopy. I'm not inclined to grant a variance for the canopy in addition to the pylon sign. So, however, like right now, Sitco is just letters. If they want to put golf up there that doesn't exceed 25%.
Okay, but the rest of the canopy is painted with the Sitco colors and there's these triangle motifs, which are part of the kind of
Right, so I wouldn't.
logo.
Right, so they wouldn't be allowed to do that.
You would have a problem with
Yeah.
with what's proposed, okay. All right. So then,
So we're saying the canopy is gonna be a solid, we're requesting that canopy be a solid color, and that the gulf, whether it's the east or west facing facade, doesn't exceed 25% of that.
Whatever they want to do,
Yeah,
as long as it doesn't exceed 25%.
The other alternative would be if the board, I mean, depending on what the determination was, if it was the blue and orange, like a band around it, then we would need a determination from Lizette as to whether that constituted a sign. I'm not sure at this point because of, she only viewed it as a whole with the clouds and the logo and the banding. So I don't think it's for this board to say what she would have determined if an alternate proposal had been provided.
okay.
See, I don't have any problem with the pylon sign just because of the testimony that it was prohibitively expensive to modify that. But there's no testimony that it's prohibitive to do something with a canopy that fits within the code.
Okay, so you would not support a variance for the canopy portion?
Correct.
Okay. How does the rest of the board feel about this?
If it were just painted like it is without the cloud part and without the part that comes above it, I mean,
if the argument that they need a 20-foot sign to be seen from Route 55, if you accept that argument, I don't think you need anything big on Manchester Road.
Okay, okay. All right. So the canopy then would have to be some background color, and then 25% of it could be
the word Gulf.
The word Gulf, the Gulf circular logo, as long as it doesn't extend above, and then whatever kind of cloud and color.
Whatever they want, so long as it doesn't exceed 25%. So they can choose whatever combination of emblems or letters or words or images.
Okay. Okay, I'm agreeable to that. Is that? Do you?
I have no objection to that, no, I think that's fine.
Okay. All right, so, all right, so let's just go through these in order, and there's again, there's a very helpful, staff report.
Do you want to do the neg deck first?
Yeah, okay. So it is, okay. I move that the ZBA declare itself lead agency for the purposes of the environmental review of the action in item 10.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, recusals, okay. I further move that the ZBA finds that based on the EAF short form, that the action proposed in item number 10 will have no significant impact on the environment.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. All right, so now let's work our way through this and let me see.
So I have a question for our council. Typically, we don't have a problem with the electronic display signs for gas stations. Is there a way to limit the variance to that type of? I mean, I understand the code and what it's trying to prohibit, but I think that this falls outside that realm. So is there a way to limit?
You can say the variance is granted for the displaying of gas prices only.
Okay.
And that's what we did, I think, with the other gas station where we had, this issue came up again. I know that Mike, in the staff report, Mike has the general EMD, but I think if you limit it to gas prices, then you have, a lot of that goes away because it's not going to be flashing and whatever.
Right. Yeah, I pulled the requirements for EMD signage that would be relevant to this kind of a sign out, and unlike last time where I just gave you guys the letters, I decided to put all the text in there so you can see what it is. But yes, I think that would, if you, well, you could have both.
Absolutely.
Right, you could keep
And
these here.
I particularly like the point about if the sign malfunctions, it goes to dark as opposed to giving any other symbol, which I think we should incorporate into any EMD signs we grant going forward.
And also the dimming technology, which is consistent with the whole question about the neighbors and the residential character of the areas.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I move that the board approve the following requests for area variances as set forth in item number 10. One, a variance from Article 210, 123.1 to allow an electronic message display sign in a district where such signs are prohibited. Two, from 210, 125B2 to allow a freestanding sign of 20 feet in height where signs of 12 feet are permitted. Three, from 210, 125B2 to allow a sign of 50.83 square feet where a sign having a maximum area of 12 feet is permitted. And four, a variance from 210, 130B.
Mr. Chairman.
Nope, oops. No.
So it's just 1 through 3 and not 4 and 5?
Oh, yes. Okay. All right. So they have to conform to the canopy requirements and not have a projecting sign above the canopy. Okay. All right. Okay. This decision is based on a review of the application, testimony of the applicant, testimony offered in public hearing, and result of site visits by board members. In approving these variances, the board adopts as the findings set forth in the staff report.
I would say with some modification, however, because in this case, the fourth variance was, I lumped together with the first three.
Okay.
The fifth one, I argued was, did not meet those standards in the five.
Right, okay. Okay, so with those modifications and the approval of this variance is subject to the following conditions, and these would be the conditions that are set forth in the staff recommendation number 1. And these generally are conditions that apply to all electronic digital signs.
And Paul's additional condition that the electronic messaging be only for the display of gasoline pricing.
Yes.
And do we need to make additional findings to satisfy the county? I mean, I would point out that this sign size, the height, and size of the sign have existed at that location for years and years.
Right. And then I would also add that although the gas station is technically located in the Arlington town center, that the immediate neighborhood of the gas station is quite different from the rest of the Arlington town center, and that the variances that we are allowing are consistent with that portion of the Arlington district. Is that?
Jim, do we have a limit on the time that the signs were on at night? I think
Well, there's general code that says it's limited to the hours of an.
neighborhood.
Let's see.
There's general code about that it's limited to the hours of operation.
Yeah. In other words, any commercial sign, it either has to be turned off.
And 11, 10?
Is it 11?
Could be 11.
Yeah, unless all commercial signs have to be turned off after 11 p.m. unless the business is still open.
Okay.
So in other words, diners don't have to go dark. Okay, so, but that's a general code provision. So
Okay.
we don't have to incorporate it here.
No, all right.
But the conditions do talk about the dimming after dark, which again is become pretty standard. Okay, so move.
Second.
Okay, any other comments? All right, if not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Recusals? Okay, that's.
Can you, just for the record, deny 4 and 5 so that we have a vote on that?
Oh, okay. All right. I move that the board deny the request for area variances set forth in item number 10 as follows. One, a variance to allow signage of 71.07 square feet on a canopy of 74.375 square feet, constituting 95.55% of the canopy side, where the signage covering 25% of the canopy is permitted. And two, from section 210-130B, to allow the proposed Gulf sign on the canopy to project above and extend from the canopy, where canopy signs are required to be affixed flat against the face of the canopy. This decision is based on a review of the application, testimony of the applicant, testimony offered in the public hearing, and results of site visits by board members. In denying these two variances, the board adopts its findings set forth in the staff report with the change that the discussion of the variance concerning, number 4, and in place of the language in the staff report, the board notes that given the size of the freestanding sign, that there's no need for canopy signs of a size beyond what's permitted in the code.
Second.
Is that okay? All right. Okay. Okay. I guess there's a
motion and a second.
There's a motion and a second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. So we've got 3 sections approved and 2 denied. Okay, that brings us to the end of the applications on our agenda. There's 2 other items. One, there's a request from the Town Planning Board to be lead agency for the, an addition to the Verizon store. Night.
Good night.
At 661 Dutchess Turnpike. This is the old Planet Wings, and.
Yeah, what do they want to do?
Yeah, so I guess.
They have a application in front of the planning board for an additional retail space. It's unclear exactly what the use will be, but that's the application.
Okay.
Okay, this may or may not be back before us, depending on whether they need things like side yard variances or whatever.
No, there's not a lot of room.
So I move that the ZBA approve the request from the planning board that they serve as lead agency for the Verizon store additional retail expansion at 661 Dutchess Turnpike.
Second?
Okay, favor?
Aye.
Opposed, recusals, fine. And finally, the last matter is, I would like to have us designate a vice chairman for this board. As you know, Betty Bamba, I think, I don't know whether she was elected to that role or assumed it or did it very well. There's a particular reason for doing that now, and that's that I'm not going to be able to be here for the September meeting. So I'd like to designate somebody that can step in and chair that meeting.
May I nominate Mr. Arthur Grace? Since he's not here.
Yes. I would, that is the ultimate dirty trick in boards.
To not show up.
Yeah, and Art was unable to make it to this meeting, and I would hate to put pressure on.
Oh, how about Mr. Lacy?
I would
I renew my nomination of Mr. Grace.
How about him?
I haven't heard that seconded.
No, I would second that. Paul, are you agreeable?
Sure. But I will not be here in October. Will you?
I'll be here in October.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so there's a motion made and seconded to appoint Paul Leahy as our vice chair. Is there
Aye.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
And I recuse myself.
Yes, okay. All right, that is the end of the agenda as I know it. Is there any other business before us? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
He's got it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We stand adjourned.